We are continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, and we're starting the halachot in halachot of Beit Knesset, a subcategory of Tashmishei Kedusha, things that are used in purpose of items that are considered kadosh, like Sefer Torah, Sfarim, Aron Kodesh, all those things that are considered Tashmishei Kedusha. Is going to be in Siman Kuf Nun Dalet, which we're starting right now, in Daf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph of the regular Prince of Mishna Berura. Maran writes, the Chava Shel Ir. This is a very packed Daf Chavav in Masechet Megillah. This is also from another piece of that Gemara. Rechava Shel Ir, afal pish mitpalelim ba b'ta'aniyot, en ba mishum kedusha mipnei shu aray. If you have areas that are used for tefillah, but very randomly, it's not a set minyan that's there. The Chava Shel Ir was used for whenever they had the ta'aniyot and all the people came together all at once to daven together, the shuls were not sufficient. So they would have an over crowd of people outside in the Chava Shel, in the area that was large for people to stand. So even though they use it for tefillah periodically, that's not considered a makom kadosh because it is a very temporary usage. And the same is with courtyards and houses that sometimes people periodically daven there. It's not a derech kviyut, it's not a set minyan. En b'hem shum kedusha. There's no kedusha whatsoever over there. Now says the Chafetz Chaim in Mishna Berura, Rechava Shel Ir is the place that was large, like a circle of the town, so to speak, the large area that could fit the most number of people, and they will use that place for the public fasts when they needed everyone to get together. And same would be with the houses. And afilu bait panushem but dar adam. Even if you have a house that's empty and you only used sometimes periodically for this purpose of tefillah, and nobody really lives there, right, that still does not become kadosh because the minyan is not a minyan kavua. Now, how about the azarot that we have? Says the Chafetz Chaim, והאזהרות שלנו לא עדיף מבתים וחסרות שאינן מתפללים בהן, אלא כשהן נדחקים. ומכל מקום אפשר לומר שהוא אקראי לגבי זה המתפלל. You know, sometimes people daven in Azara. Sometimes people not daven. If there's this late minyan, the people who, if enough people on Erev Shabbat missed the mincha, and then they stand behind the door in the hallway and daven, new minyan, that was created because enough people came late. So says the Chafetz Chaim, you have such a thing, and if it happens, then the place now is kavua for lazy people, for the latecomers, right? That's what Chafetz Chaim calls it. Hamakom nase keva le'atzlanim. It becomes a place for those who come late, and that becomes a minyan kavua of its own. Now, again, this is azara that he says, but same would be with the hallway of the shul, as we mentioned, that, the mincha arvit sometimes takes place there, and many times you even have the guy giving a little drasha also as well in the middle, so it's like a bet midrash and a bet knesset, even though that's really meant and built to be just a hallway, but sometimes it's used for tefillah and for drasha, and therefore it is considered a makom kadosh, and that's what it says in Netivei Am as well, that you have to act with a certain level of kedusha of Beit Knesset with that area as well. Now, how about if you have a basement of a shul that it's always used for other things? It's not meant for Beit Knesset. People have maybe parties in it. They have birthdays. They rent the place out, and so on. And now, Baruch Hashem, the shul grew, and people started having a minyan, an early minyan or a late minyan, on Shabbat in the social hall, in this, basement, whatever it is that they had. So does that get a Kedusha Beit Knesset? The Gabaim, they appointed specific people to run the minyan, and so on and so forth. So even though that the shul doesn't like it to happen, imagine even if you had a scenario in which the Rashi HaKahal, the Gabaim, are not for it. They don't want this to happen. But people are doing it. Enough people get together at 10 o'clock a.m., not 9:30 a.m., and they have a minyan. Or they want to have a next minyan, an early minyan. So enough people, have 10 people, yalla. And the shul is not happy with it. They want to keep a centrality of the main minyan. So that the Kaf Chaim writes that if it's against the Rav of the shul and the Gabaim of the shul, the Rashi HaKahal, then it does not take any Kedusha Beit Knesset on it, and it's mutar to use it as the Tashmish Chol, the usage, the mundane usage that they had before. It's mutar to keep that, and no problem whatsoever. So it says, the Chafetz Chaim, ובעיירות גדולות שהדרך להתפלל שם בעזרה בקביעות, in larger cities that they have multiple minyanim, and even the Ezrat Nashim is used for a minyan. There's Agudat Yisrael in Baltimore, for instance. You had kavua minyanim in the Ezrat Nashim. In both places of Ezrat Nashim, 2 different rooms, and you had, around the clock minyanim, and some of them were in Ezrat Nashim because of the lack of room. That's Pashut, the Kol Kedusha Beit Knesset Alav. All the halachot of the Kedusha Beit Knesset is on that place as well, says the Chafetz Chaim. Now, it says the Shulchan Aruch is Sif Bet. Hasochrim Beit Mitpalelim Bo, En Lo Din Beit Knesset. This is very important. If you rent a house, says the Shulchan Aruch, and you designate that place for Tefillah, there's no Kedusha Beit Knesset there. Why is that? Because hasochrim bayit lizman kavua lechodesh or leshana. If you are renting a place for a month, for a year, it's not going to be sanctified with the kedusha bet knesset. V'atam dekvan debichlot zman haschirut yesh biad ba'al habayit shelo la'aski lahem od. When your term of rent is up, the owner could say, "Nice doing business with you for a year. Get out. Right? I'm not renewing the lease." He could kick the operation of a Beit Knesset out. So if he has the right to kick you out, then in that scenario, Eno Ela Arai, that becomes Arai, even though that you may have a lease, it's still considered Arai, and hence you cannot even make it Kadosh. Ein Bo Kedusha. It doesn't have Kedusha. Now, that being said, the Kaf Chaim says that even with all that said, it's asur to be mebazeh de makom. You can't do minhag bizayon in the Beit Knesset, right? You can't do that. Now, if you take a look at the Berura Halacha, he explains over here on the side that there are those who say that this halacha is said only when you are renting without the legal permission of the government. But if you have legal permission of the government, and if the government knows about it, let's imagine the places in Russia that having a shul was against the law. You had all kinds of different gezerot on Klal Yisrael. If you have a situation in which if the government knows about it, they'll shut down the whole operation. Titbatel haschirut be'emsa hazman, לכן אין אלא ארעי ואין בו קדושה. אבל אם שכרו את בית כנסת ברשות המלכות, but if it's legal and the government also allows this to happen, then even though that you have a lease of just a few years, it's considered נחשב לקבע, ויש בו קדושה במשך כל זמן השכירות, and the Chafetz Chaim actually paskins like this להלכה. So even though that in the Mishnah Berura he writes in Bo Kedusha, if it's rental, right? In Berura Halacha he says that nowadays if you have something that the government is okay with, which is Baruch Hashem in the United States of America, it's Malchut Shel Chesed still in, there's nothing, no laws against it. So if you have a legal document of a lease, for the period of the lease, it has the Kedusha Beit Knesset. And the Kaf HaChaim also passes like this. So therefore, even though the majority of the shuls may be nowadays rentals, but still it does not infringe on Kedusha Beit Knesset, even though that there are those who say, like Maran, that if it's rental and by Kedusha, that's only because they could nullify the Kedusha immediately, could get flagged by the government. But if nobody within the terms could nullify the lease, then it will be fine. Says the Mishnah Berura, Sif Katan Hei, Davka im hu להתפלל לבד, אבל אם הוא בית מדרש, יש פה קדושה. And that rental thing is only for Bet Knesset. But Bet Midrash, even in the time of Shulchan Aruch, it would be maintaining its kedusha, even if it's rental. And this is what Sha'aret Tshuva brings in the name of Reb Chaim ben Eshti, the name of the Krista Gdola, in his Tshuvot by Haye in Siman Chavav. The Chafetz Chaim does not understand this. He says, I don't understand what the reason for this is. Ve'ulai, he writes, maybe the keva shunasa keva gamur itpalel ve'lilmod bo kederech bet midrash lo mikri arai. Maybe it's called that because it's not arai, because you're learning there also. It's not just that you're davening there. Now, the Kaf HaChaim says the reason for Knesset Gdola. He says we're talking about a government that is very specific about building shuls without permission, right? And therefore, shuls, if they catch on that this place is rented as shul, they go shut it down right away. But they don't care about libraries, right? For them, a Bet Midrash is a library. Go there, there's wall-to-wall books, people sitting and studying, They don't flag that as something that bothers them. And therefore, if you rented a Bet Midrash, you don't need permission from the government. They come see it, they have no problem with it. And therefore, it takes the Kedusha Bet Midrash right away. But if you have a Bet Knesset and they don't know, it's a whole hushed up, because any second it could blow up, that does not contain Kedusha. That's how he explains the whole thing, the Kaf HaChaim. Okay, let's do one more seif over here. Time allows. Actually, we are out of time right now. So we'll continue with Zat Hashem Seif Gimel in the days to come.